That's wonderful. Thanks for letting me know that. Okay, so we're recording, and here we are, and welcome everybody to our first Loving the Moon event. And this one is about what does the moon mean to you? And it's not a question that you need to answer. It's a rhetorical one for yourself, but we'll go through some stuff. What are we going to go through in this session, Julie?
Oh, what are we going to go through? Well, Pete and I, we're just going to introduce ourselves firstly, because some of you, I don't know, and some of you, Pete doesn't know, and really just touch on why it is we've chosen this subject. And it's really lovely to see so many people here interested about the moon. Oh,
It is, yeah.
It's so exciting. And really our intention today is to just share tidbits of information that can really benefit all of us, men and women. So there's going to be some like educational pieces, but most importantly, we want to have some fun, and get really curious with the moon and explore it, and also get you excited for our workshop in January as well. So we'll get that bit out of the way now. But we're going to have a fabulous workshop in January. Where we'll be diving even deeper into some of these practices.
Don't worry, you'll all get to hear about it more. I know some people here have already booked on it, so hello, Alice. But one thing that you just mentioned is interesting, because obviously we're going to be taught in our modern society where people have gone outside, the new age and everything else. The association is moon, women, divine feminine, the whole thing, which has gone far too far, personally. I can explain that. But nevertheless, everything we talk about here, and especially when Julie's talking about women's issues and menopause and menstruation and things like this, I will explain why this affects men as well and why men shouldn't just ignore this. And I'll go through some history as well, which has got divine proof of why this is the case. We have the same emotional effect from the moon. Why am I pointing up there? It's because the moon's up there. I mean, that's the south. That's directly south, so it comes up over here and does that. But that's why I'm pointing there. But yeah, I mean, those aspects of the moon that affect women physically as well as emotionally. They do affect men emotionally, and learning to ride the wave and knowing where you are in the moon phase cycle is important. So
important
for men who are watching this, don't ignore that. And when Julie's talking about women's issues, don't think it's just about women, because it's not. It's about us too, and we should actually pay attention in those points. So I'll shut up now because I always talk too much. Where were you, Julie?
I have no idea.
Okay.
No.
Well, introduce yourself then. Introduce yourself.
So, hello everyone. I'm Julie, and really my discovery of the moon came about from my passion, which is health, really. And it was about 4.5 years ago when I started to learn about my body and my menstrual cycle, and that's when I discovered what a wonderful tool the moon is to help me manage my health. And that's what I do now. I help other people learn how to work with the moon and all aspects of nature so they can restore their health as well. So that's me. Pete, over to you.
Oh, well, yes, this is me. Well, I'm a hypnotist. Some people will already know that. But also I've been involved in non-ordinary reality for over 40 years. When I say non-ordinary reality, that's a shamanic term used by Carlos Castaneda, and I like that term. So from ceremonial magic to earth energy, earth magic, particularly alchemy, transformative alchemy, and then moving through lots of other aspects of non-ordinary realities. I mean, this has been my world for over 40 years, and the people that I've met and the people I've connected with and the things that I've learned have been very, very useful, not just for me, but for helping other people to actually work with these things that are out there, and they are there, that our ordinary reality refuses to accept, bizarrely. And I'm not going to go into that, but that is the truth of it. So yes, I work as a hypnotherapist. I mean, I do street hypnosis and all the fun stuff as well. I'm that kind of hypnotist, but I really do like to help people. This is something that actually fits like that with hypnosis, because to connect with things in non-ordinary realities, and the moon is something we're going to connect with in this session, you are going to be going into a trance. You're going to be using a trance to make the connection. Well, you can call it a hypnotic trance. You can call it a guided meditation. Believe me, I won't be guiding you too much. You need to allow your own experience to be elicited from within yourself as you go out into this non-personal cosmology, these external cosmologies. And so we're going to be doing that. That sounded a bit more complicated than it actually is. So I hope that you understand that it's going to be a lot simpler than that. Think of it as a guided meditation. It'll work fine, but it's going to go deeper than that for you personally if you just allow yourself to follow it. Is there anything else I need to say? I don't think there is really. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've got lots of things on my CV that, the guy on the radio, I did a radio show yesterday, and the guy on the radio kept listing them all out. It's like, it's taken up your entire 2-hour show, mate.
All right, enough about you, Pete.
Yes, let's talk about you.
Let's talk about the moon, shall we? Let's talk about the moon. So let's just get the basics in, shall we? What we're going to work on today is the principles of the 4 moon phases. So, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't. But basically, what we work with are the 4 main phases. So it starts off. The moon phase starts with the new moon. That's when it's very dark in the sky because we can't see the moon in the sky, so it actually means no moon as well. And then the moon starts to grow. We move into what is called the waxing moon, the first quarter, and then we reach the full moon. So the moon is at its fullest, its brightest, and then it starts to wane. That's the waning moon. That's the 3rd quarter, and then it cycles round to the new moon again, and that cycle continues. And each of those quarters, each of those phases can also connect with different seasons. So new moon is winter, then we move into spring, then it's summer, then it's autumn, and then it's winter again. And that cycle continues round and round and round. And when we understand, you have a question, Pete?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I just want to ask you if you could just explain this so that we have, let's say we have a waning moon in a season that it's not associated with.
Mm-hmm.
What happens then?
So that's when we refer to those seasons as inner seasons.
Thank you, yeah.
So we have these lunar phases and these seasons cycling internally within us all of the time as we're journeying through the seasons outside as well. And when we understand how those phases operate, how they affect us energetically, then we can learn to balance our energy with all the seasons that are occurring outside as well. And we'll go into it later, but it's a really great way to help with so many things, such as balancing our emotions, like Pete said earlier, our menstrual cycle, our energy, and our diet as well. So we're also going to share something really interesting about how our eating habits are affected by it too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff to come, and this is just in today's stuff. I mean, obviously, things that we touch on today, we're going to run a series of workshops, and we'll go into much greater detail in the workshops. But the moon's very, very interesting for us because at the moment we're in a place in time where the moon's become very important to people who are living outside of the mainstream. That are looking, I shouldn't call it alternative. I mean, this is the real reality as far as I'm concerned. But we understand the value of the moon. But there are problems with the moon. the best way I can explain it is this. There's a doctor of cosmology and astronomy from the Smithsonian, the Harvard Smithsonian Institute for Astrophysics. His name is Erwin Shapiro. And when we look at all the things that really are bizarre about the moon, he came up with this term. The best possible explanation for the moon is observational error. It just doesn't exist. So it's the only thing you can do on it. Somebody else, there's a professor of mathematics who specializes in probability, who also said that if you ask me for what the probability is for a moon like that one that we see in the night sky or the day sky, sometimes it's visible during the day, if you ask me to work out the probability, it's impossible. It actually, the odds are greater than the number of atoms in the universe that we suspect in the known universe, which they estimate is 10 to the power of 80, which if you want to write it down, it'll take you about an hour because it's 10 followed by 80 zeros. And it's like, it's that number to 1 doesn't even give you a chance for the moon existing and being where it is now. There's so many things that are strange about the moon that we'll talk about in a little while. For example, the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun. Exactly 400 times smaller than the sun. And that alone is bizarre. But wait, there's more. The moon is also 1/400th of the distance between the Earth and the sun. Exactly. How do we know it's exactly? In a full solar eclipse, those two disks are exactly the same size as you're looking at them. If you're at a point where you can see a full solar eclipse, you will see this dark disk exactly the same size as the sun, and they go together like that. And all you can see is the flaring corona of the energy that's coming out from the sun over the black disk of the moon until the moon moves by. I mean, what are the chances of that? And why is it? And the moon around our planet is bigger in proportion to its planet than any other moon in the solar system. There is no moon in the solar system that's as proportionally great with respect to its planet. It's doing strange things to us. Well, anyway, I'll shut up now. I've got more facts that will come later. So I'll let you come back in, Jewel.
No, fill us in. I want to know who put it there, Pete. Who put the moon there?
Well, let's say the unknown creative agency. Does that work for you? Unknown creative agency. Well, look, there are strange things. Life on this planet wouldn't exist without the moon. It's just not possible. Mm-hmm. First of all, our planet is at a tilt of 22.5 degrees. And it's stable at 22, well, relatively stable in as much as it would take millions of years for it to move. But 22.5 degrees. If it wasn't, if we were perfectly upright in relation to the sun, the equator would be so hot that no life could exist there. The only places where life could exist would be the two poles, and even there, very small places. However, nothing would exist because of the differences there. We would have raging weather. I mean, tidal waves like you wouldn't believe. It would be incredible. It would be stupid. Nothing could survive it. Life could not have evolved within it. Certainly not life like us. You'd be lucky to get bacteria. I mean, I could go even further with that, but the moon is in a position and it orbits us in a way that is within 3 degrees of keeping us stable. It's just impossible to understand how this thing just turned up there, orbited us in that position at a point where we were at 22.5 degrees so that we could have seasonal change and temperate weather, and so that life could evolve. And if it wasn't there, we would fall over. We've watched Venus that has no moon. It topples over now and again. Mars, it's got tiny little moons, and it is so unstable. It's crazy. But us, we've got this massive great moon at the exact distance that it needs to be to hold us in this stable position so that we can get weather from the sun, and the sun can then develop life. however that does develop. Can you start seeing? And there's loads more. The difficulty in understanding why the moon exists, or how it could possibly exist and be there in this planet, there are no odds that you could describe that would suggest that it should be there. The one thing we do know is it is there. And I think that's what we have to work with. Instead of trying to become mathematical about this or go all conspiracy theory about this, how about this? On a clear night, at most of the phases of the moon, I can see it. It's there. It does what it does. It has the effect that it has. So why don't we just discuss the moon from the point of view that it's there? What we need to do is work with the energy that it gives us and watch those changes and those flows of energy and ride that wave so that our lives become better. We become healthier. We become more emotionally stable. We become more empowered in our lives to do the things we want to do, to be the people we want to be, if we will just make that connection and ride that wave and learn to ride it. What do you reckon, Jill?
I reckon this is what we need to be taught in school.
Good luck with that. I'll allow you to write that letter to the education secretary and we'll see what goes on.
But it begs the question, and I hope that a lot of you leave here today, asking the questions, why are we not told this? Why are we not given the opportunity to work with the moon? Why is it never really talked about? It gives us so much, it really does. And when you leave here today, I really hope that you will leave, you'll leave with a connection, but you'll also leave with a better understanding of how you can use it, like Peter just said, to make your life and your health so much better.
And the moon is what it does for us is quite stable once we learn to move with it. I mean,
it's unstable.
Well, I am, as you can see. But it does strange things that we can actually really work with. So it mimics the sun. It literally mimics the sun because of the angle that we're at. The sun will rise and set in different places on the horizon and at different times of year. So in the northern hemisphere, where I am, the sun at the winter solstice will be setting further south than it does in the summer solstice. It's interesting. And the equinoxes, it's in the middle of those two places. Well, the moon rises and sets at exactly the same place as the sun does at the equinoxes, but exactly, and I mean exactly, at the opposite point in the solstices. It's almost crazy that it does that, and all these other facts that I've been talking about. But if it didn't do that, life on Earth would not be developed the way that it has been. It does seem like it's been engineered somehow, but I really don't want to go down that road. I just literally want to work with it and use it and enjoy it and love it.
And it's been used, hasn't it, Pete, in the past? There's evidence that lives before us used it as a tool.
Oh gosh, yeah. Even if we go back to the Paleolithic, our Paleolithic ancestors, they definitely used it. It was the thing that they used the most for all aspects of their life. But particularly, they were looking at the lunar phase. They knew it. We've seen at the Lascaux caves in southern France, which they estimate that the cave paintings in there are 30,000 years old, 25 to 30,000. I rather suspect that it's a lot older than that, but we won't go down that road either. But we'll just talk about our Paleolithic ancestors, and they weren't as primitive as people think. We've got carvings from bones where there are notches in the bones that, funnily enough, add up to the number of days in a lunar cycle, and so on. The great one is the Venus of Losel. What Venus has got to do with it, I've no idea. But in another cave, in the early part of the 20th century, this guy went in, and he's looking at what's on the cave walls, and he found this carving in the wall. It's about 30 centimeters high, and it's a carving of a woman. And the image looks like you see, if you go to Glastonbury now, you'll go into the shops and they've got these big fat bulbous goddess women, and that's the goddess, and that allows you to be fat and be a goddess. I don't know. But anyway, they've got them there in that shape, and it's almost like they're using that shape. But what they don't understand is the woman's not that shape, because what we have discovered is that carving, which was done in flint on a stone wall, so it takes some doing in a dark cave, in a pitch black cave where you've got to crawl your way in and take perhaps some fat that you can light to give yourself some light. And there's this woman. She has one hand on her abdomen. In the other hand, she's holding what we're pretty sure is a bison horn, but it's a crescent, which a bison horn is. What else looks like a crescent sometimes? Because also there are 13 notches on that. How many menstrual cycles a year is a woman likely to have if they're even? 13. We're pretty sure that we know what this was. The shape of the woman, how we know that this was a point of view. This was a self-portrait. This is like the first ever selfie, right? This was. So they say, like, okay, well, the woman has like seen herself, and this is how she's carved herself in. And everybody's thinking, well, it's not very good then, is it? But no, when we got this wonderful genius photo artist that looked at it and said, actually, no, what's happened here is she wouldn't have had a mirror. She wouldn't have been able to see herself. The only way she looks at herself is if you look down. And because of perspective and foreshortening, that's why the legs look shorter and fatter. And and then things get fatter and more bulbous as you look down. This is what she's done. And how did they prove that? They did some computer tests, and they did some computer examples based on that one. And they said, okay, if you take away the foreshortening and you look at it as though you're looking directly at that woman, this is what she'd look like. It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, they proved it non-stop that that's what's happened. So women were becoming very self-aware at that time. They were also becoming very aware of their relationship with the moon, and it became very important. We could go through other ancient cultures that are not as ancient as that, because that's carried on through from, let's say, from Sumer right the way through. But that it's very, very important. And we've had loads of other examples of this. I don't want to go through too many because obviously time's running out, and you know that I would talk forever about this because I'm really fascinated by it. So did that answer what you wanted me to say, Jewel, or is there anything more?
Perfect. It's perfect. So it's really kind of touching on the subject now about the lunar phases, the lunar cycle itself, and the length of time that is, and the number of days and years, and how different that is to the solar calendar.
Yeah, well, there's an issue there as well, because we're all aware of the moon's 29 and a bit day cycle. And we are so used to seeing in these averages for women's menstrual cycle. You bear in mind, 28 days, it's an average. And if you weren't subject to modern society and mainstream information, you probably wouldn't have that average. Certainly in our Paleolithic ancestors' days, they did have that. You can see that they were really in phase with the moon. It meant that much to them. It was almost spot on. There are cultures around the world, I hate to use the term primitive cultures because they're not primitive, but you know what I mean, where women in communities have their cycles at the same time and also in line with the moon. Interesting, isn't it, that? So take away all of the technology and all of the misinformation that we get, put yourself out into nature, and suddenly the alignment starts coming in. There's loads of evidence about that too.
It's interesting also when, like, the new moon in the lunar calendar always symbolizes the start of a new month.
I'm sorry. Yeah, come
And how that's been a part of life for others over the years, but how we've lost that, and now we have these, the start of the year is supposed to be January the 1st, and we have certain numbers of days in each month, and really when we can start to work with the moon a bit more, we get to create a bit more flexibility in our lives.
We do. I mean, if you can sort of disassociate the lunar calendar from the solar calendar. By the way, I'm not saying that, oh, that patriarchal solar calendar, we should leave it alone. No. Without the sun, we'd also not exist either, so we do need it. But what people have tried to do is create a calendar that like knocks in with the sun. And it's terrible. I mean, over the last 2,000 years, we've had 3 different calendars. We're working with the Gregorian one now, but we're constantly having to scrape around and change it. And then you have to put this intercalary day there for every 4 years. We have a leap year and an extra day. It just doesn't work. Here's the interesting part. The lunar cycle, if you look at the moon in the sky, if you could see it tonight, and there it was on a clear night, if you wanted to see it in that exact position again, you're going to have to wait 18.618 years. The lunar cycle is 18.618 years. And within that cycle, it's going through its phases all the time throughout that cycle. So yes, you can create a calendar, which we're going to do. That workshop was really based around that. The one we're doing in January, show you how to create a calendar where you can have a unique calendar so that you can work with the moon without losing track of where the sun is. And that's the critical point. So you literally are not reliant upon the sun, but you're also aware of it, and you can use its energies, the solstices, the equinoxes, and so on, and its phases in between those times. So we're going to go back to looking at certainly where our Celtic ancestors were, or Nordic ancestors, or Egyptians, or Babylonians, or Sumerians, and so on. We're going to go back to what they used to do, which was to divorce a lunar calendar from the solar calendar, but they worked with the sun as well. And so that's what we're looking to do. We're not here to say, oh, the sun's patriarchal, we must ignore it. What we're saying is we find the balance, and we understand that the moon has its own cycle that really doesn't map to the sun's cycle and the Earth's relationship cycle to the sun, but all 3 of them work together. So creating the moon calendar allows you then to put yourself in this position where you can work your life in a way that's in balance with all 3 of the objects that have the greatest effect on us. So Earth, Sun, Moon. And that's why it's important for us to do that. I'll shut up.
We're so connected though, aren't we? And the moon does impact us on every level. It really does.
Gosh, yeah. Even physical, even the physical level, it can. If you're ignoring it, you'll find that things happen physically. It's almost like your inner self is giving you messages to say, pay attention, pay attention. And instead of going to the doctor and getting loads of pills, meditate on that. Give your attention to it. See, now I'm doing this shoulder because I had that this morning. Give attention to that. And you can ask it questions. You go down in a meditation. Meditation isn't always about like having an empty head, which is great. If you can achieve nirvana, the Hindu nirvana, or Buddhist satori, great, fantastic if you can do it brilliantly. But if you want to use meditation as a process that you can actually get results from in this lifetime, in your life now, then use some intention. I always like say, well, you sit with that. And I can say, okay, you've got my attention. What are you telling me? And you can wait and see if there's a message. And if it's not there today, it might come another day. But you've asked, now it's going to start telling you. When it does, the physical discomfort will disappear as you become more aware of what it is it's reminding you to take notice of.
And this is how we can use the moon for our self-care. Because if we can use those moon cycles, I mean, you can meditate whenever you want, but if it's something that you want to build a practice around, taking time during the new moon especially is a wonderful time to go inward. That's what that energy is all about. So if you were to start doing that every new moon, you'd soon be in the habit of doing that, and the energy of it would bring you closer to you anyway.
And here's another beauty about that, is the idea that the lunar cycle is not the same as the solar one. You know, it's this 18.618. By the way, 18.618 years. Here's another strange fact that you've got to wonder how this could ever happen. It's exactly 6,800 days. How could it be so exact? I mean, I don't know. You know, what somebody must be trying to tell us something here. But you know,
we'll work that out for the next workshop.
Yeah, but anyway, you know, but this is what happens. But the beauty of it is, because of that cycle, we don't have to look at something like, oh, January the 1st, that's the start of a new cycle. You can begin a lunar calendar cycle whenever you like. Whenever it suits you to begin it, it becomes your unique one. I would usually say start with a new moon day, but you don't have to. You can start with any day in the moon cycle. You can create your own months, which we're definitely going to show you in the next workshop, so that everybody's lunar calendar will be absolutely unique to them, which is what I do, and it's what I've done for, I don't know, 30 years, something like that. Worked with it, and I invented this process, and it makes me sound really clever, but it's so simple that I think you could find a dog in the street could have invented it. But you'll be surprised how simple it is to do it, and we'll show you how. But what I will show you is how you can anchor it to the solar cycles so that you don't miss out on that, and also how you can make it really unique for you. And the more unique it is, the more connection you will make, because our connection with the moon isn't the same for everybody.
Yeah,
it's
that's the thing. We're all unique, aren't we? And that's what we've got to recognize. And something that just really fascinates me, and something that I'd love for us to share with everybody today, Pete, is about our bodies and how the moon affects us on these levels. We touched on the physical ones, and just learning about how, as the moon ebbs and flows, so too do our bodies. And actually, did you know that the moon actually has an impact, actually affects your weight and how you absorb food at certain times of the lunar cycle? So there's a way that you can filter in your way of eating, your style of eating, in alignment with the moon, that will then help your health and your well-being. So it's really fascinating to know that when that moon is waxing, when it's starting to grow, your body is also looking to grow. It's building energy, and that's a time when you're going to want to be eating for energy as well. But at that time, the body absorbs things a lot. It can store things very easily. So we want to be mindful during the waxing moon that we're not overeating. We're eating to satisfy our energy needs. Otherwise, if you find that you're eating certain foods during a waxing moon and you're feeling heavy, then it's just that you're overdoing it. And you may find also that during that time, you could eat one food during the waxing moon and it can feel really heavy, and then you can eat that during the waning moon and it can have a completely different effect. And we're constantly blaming food for all of our weight issues. But if we were to pay attention to the moon, we could see that we fluctuate, and that if we allowed our diet and our eating habits to fluctuate, then we wouldn't have this resistance, we wouldn't have this problem.
Can I ask you, Jill? Those two 12-hour periods where we've got the full moon and the dark moon, you know, before the new moon appears, just before that first sliver of silver appears, what's that like for us physically?
That's the best time to fast. That's the best time not to eat. There are those 2 points during the lunar phase, lunar cycle. Fast during those periods, because in the full moon, that's when we want to be releasing. That's a great time to release. And during that time, you can have like emotional release practices happen as well. But the body is naturally wanting to detox. If we eat during that time, then everything just gets stuck on us. So use the full moon to actually release what we no longer need. So fasting during that point, and fasting again on the new moon, is a wonderful way to cleanse and detoxify as well. And then it's during the waning moon, when we've finished that full moon, we've had that fast, that we're then able to eat more. It's really about nourishing the body. It absorbs and takes in exactly what it needs, so we don't have to worry too much about what we're eating or the quantities that we're eating. But either way, it's always important to listen to our bodies and be guided by how we feel. And the more we work with the moon, this is how we can get closer to ourselves and start to listen to our bodies more.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? If you want to unmute yourself and ask, this would be a great time to do that.
I have a question.
Sure, Alice.
How do we get more information about this, Julie? I'm gathering it's something you do as a career. You said you did health for the moon.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Peter and I have got a little handout a little PDF we're going to share with you all after as well.
Yes.
Which will show you how you can work through those phases for the month.
Yeah, what Julie's just explained is in this brilliant little PDF that you can print out and put it on a fridge magnet on your fridge to remind you of these moon phases and what's best and how to manage the way that you eat if you want to be in phase with the moon. And you'll find that if you do it, that your life suddenly becomes a little easier. You'll notice it. If you journal as well, then you'll definitely notice it.
That's great. I'm keen. I'm keen.
But we're going to go into a lot more detail about this in the workshop in January as well, Alice, which you've already booked on, so you will be getting that too.
And there's so much more, Alice, as well, and especially with our hormones as they fluctuate. We've got the inner seasons, which are reflected here as well. And then within those inner seasons, we've got certain emotions, we've got certain body organs and systems. So it can become very complex, but once you understand it, it makes your life so much more simple. And it's like, oh, I get it. I understand why I feel like this. And then naturally it enhances your intuition, and you just naturally gravitate towards the things that feel good to you.
I mean, I have to say that what we are saying, some people might question it. All I can say is, like most things, instead of reading about it in a book, do it. And the experience is way better than intellectual knowledge. Experience will give you the answer, and it'll show you that what Julie's been talking about, what we've been talking about, is real. It does have these effects. It does make these big differences. And it's exactly the same for men as it is for women. I mean, okay, as men, we're not going to bleed. But everything else, all of the emotional turmoil that goes on, we have it at the same time. If you want examples of this, by the way, have a look in our history. Look at our Celtic history and our Nordic history, particularly, maybe the Saxon history too. But certainly from them, we've got lots and lots and lots of information about this, about how men's energy will wax and wane at different times, especially the heroic people in the great myth stories. Those myth stories are not there for entertainment. They're there to actually explain what's going on around us. And I mean, Alice knows this. I run loads of workshops where we deconstruct those stories and show what's secretly hidden within those stories, so that we can work with them and work with the characters. Those characters in those stories actually all represent emotions within us, some of which are repressed, some of which are locked down, some of which are going completely bananas. The stories are there to explain how to balance all of it. And especially, you look at women's roles in that. If you look at how in the Celtic societies and the Nordic societies in particular, but in others too, how boys grow up in those societies. And well, they're not even societies, they're communities. Women look after boys. And don't think that this is some kind of maternal matriarchal statement. They look after them in ways that you wouldn't believe. In as much as women in a community are responsible for all the boys growing up in that community. Now, the family will give the boy a name. Hello, Charlie, how are you? When he's a toddler. Women watch these boys and they see what characteristics they have in their lives, and they give them their true name. They're by women. Women will show them how to relate to women. Women will teach them how to fight. Are you ready for that one? Celtic and Viking warriors learned to fight by being taught by women, the women in the community. They teach them respect, they teach them tradition, they teach them manners, but they also teach them how to look after themselves. And that comes through in the myth stories as well as in the history. I'm talking history here. We know that there are historical records that show us this. But, you know, the great myth stories, Cuchulainn, the great Irish warrior, wanted to marry this beautiful princess. By the way, this princess, when you look at the characteristics of her, she's like a moon goddess. But he has to go over to the Isle of Skye, where there is this monstrous woman, this like shamanic woman, and the Isle of Skye is named after her. She's called Scathach, and she brutally teaches Cuchulainn, but she also gives him a daughter so that he will learn how to have sex with a woman and how to relate to a woman, and she teaches him how to fight, and he becomes the most brutally violent, brilliant warrior in Celtic history, bar none. And he goes back to Ireland, and suddenly she says, you've been trained. Yes, now I'll marry you. But the whole point of the story is that the balance is there because these people lived with the forces of nature, and they incorporated those natural forces in their myth stories so that people would learn from the stories and be stimulated unconsciously by listening to those stories. It would make the changes happen. Very hypnotic of them, actually. Anyway, that's enough. I'll stop now.
Well, talking of hypnotic, I wonder if it's time.
Would you? Oh, so to do the connection with the moon. Okay, well, I was a bit het up there, so I'm just going to take a breath.
But it's so important to recognise, you know, how connected with nature we all are.
Okay.
And yeah, you know, go back to what you were talking about there, Pete, about, you know, the emotional aspect of things and how that ties in with the moon phases and how we can actually learn to use our emotions, because what emotions are energy. They're there for use. They're not there to be stuffed down or ignored or fought against. They're actually there for us. They serve a purpose. And when we work with the moon phases, it actually opens us up to being able to tap into that energy, tap into that potential and use it to our advantage. So if we go through the phases, starting with the waxing moon, which you've mentioned before, which is like all about growth, you know, that's about energy, that's about the physical body, and emotions of kindness. But on the other side of that, we can have emotions of anger and irritation. But when we can tap into that energy, like Peter said earlier, we can release that and ride that wave instead of looking at it as a problem. It's something that's actually happening for us.
On an even deeper level, emotions that we don't want, the ones, let's call them negative emotions, and it could be anything that you want to describe as negative, rather than releasing it, you can then use the alchemy that surrounds us, if you know how to do it, to transform that energy and actually use it. Releasing it's great. It's a quick way to not have that negative effect with you. But if you go deeper, you can use transformational alchemy. You can make this a change process where that energy now is going to be used by you to do something else, to affect some change in you, or to get you to do something that's really going to enhance your life.
The driving force.
Yeah, so that's where we go a little deeper with it. But to make this easier, all of this easier. By the way, I'm not going to hypnotize you into booking onto our workshop, just in case anybody thinks that's what's going to happen here. It's not. What we're going to do is we're going to take a journey, and this will be like a shamanic journey. Now, I'm not going to go take you through the tunnel or anything like that. If anybody wants to do shamanistic practice, I've got workshops of that you can have a look at. But here's the thing. What we're going to do is we're going to, from our inner self, connect with the moon that's out there. I mean, whatever phase it's in. I mean, at the moment it's in a waning phase, and it's nicely crescent shaped. Well, it was this morning anyway. It's better still be like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to connect with the moon. Now, there are loads of ways that the moon can show itself to you. It may not. It may literally just be it may just bask in its own reflective light for you. Remember, the moon doesn't actually radiate any light whatsoever. It literally only reflects light from the sun. But it may just show you that, and you may get a feeling. It may actually connect with you as a feeling. You may actually have a vision. It may actually represent something. This is what's happened in our ancient past. I mean, we have goddesses and gods. I mean, we're going to work with the moon as a feminine characteristic, but we should also understand that, like everything in nature, it has a dual nature. There is a masculine aspect to it, and lots of cultures around the world actually use it in a masculine sense. Japan, definitely. Early Sumer, they had a moon god called Nana, and that moon god, though, as we've looked at more and more work, as we investigated, it seems that that aspect of the moon was only present and actually giving its power to us during the full moon. The rest of the time, there was a goddess. So Nana, Ninlil, Samur Amat, these are ones we're going through, to Babylon, Ishtar, Inanna, then Isis in Egypt. These are all literally the same deities that people used to connect with the moon. Artemis in Greece, Astarte in Greece, Diana in Rome, Selene in Greece, Hecate. And guess who else? Mary, mother of Jesus. Same goddess. I guarantee it. Same goddess. There's a reason why the symbolism in Renaissance paintings is what it is. That blue dress, always in the blue dress. And there's lots of other aspects of what we see about Holy Mary, Mother of God. She's a moon goddess, and she's in that same line that goes back to Nana in Sumer, right the way through from Isis, Artemis, Astarte, Diana, so on, Selene, Hecate, the lot. She belongs to that same family, that same group. I just thought I'd throw that one in there just to spark a little bit of imagination from people. But that is the truth. You can look it up. It is. If you understand, if you know which occult books to look for, you'll find the links there. I would suggest 777 by Aleister Crowley, which is the greatest correspondence of symbolism that you'll ever find, ever, anywhere outside of Carl Jung. But anyway, enough of that. So the idea is that when we connect with the moon may show itself to you, the feminine aspect. If it shows itself as a masculine aspect, what's it going to tell you? I mean, you will know. I would give you an idea, but it's not for me to interpret your experience. Your experience is going to be for you. So whatever you see, sometimes you might just see a color. It may just be a sort of like floating gassy shape. It depends. I mean, spirit will come to you in different ways. I mean, I also have, if you want to learn how to connect with spirit, not just for the moon, here's the way to do it. Call on the spirit of a compass direction. Usually the east will be the best one to start. I call upon the spirit of the east. If you close your eyes and imagine a horizon, any horizon you like, and just see a dot on that horizon and say those words, I call upon the great spirit of the East, be here with me now. And that dot will get closer. You keep doing that and practicing it. Again, I've got another practice called the body altar, which we can talk about another time. But that is a way that you can actually learn to connect. But with this one, what we're going to do now, you may actually get a representation, you may not, but you are going to see something and you are going to make the connection. The more you practice this beyond this workshop here, the stronger that connection gets. It's like anything in our everyday world. The more you practice it, the better you get. Yeah? I've got guitars sitting here. If I didn't touch them, I might as well throw them on the fire. Practice is the only way that I can actually play it. I need to practice more. So if you want to go through this exercise, this is going to be good. All you've got to do is make yourself a little comfortable and get ready for this. It's only going to take a few minutes. It's not going to take long. If you don't want to go through this exercise, go and make yourself a cup of tea or just sit there and watch. If you want to turn your video off while this is happening so people don't see you falling asleep, that's fine too. Whatever's comfortable for you, because we're going to go through a very easy, simple, connective exercise that allows you to connect with the moon. And when I say connect, I probably mean reconnect, because before we're born, even in the womb, we have that connection. We step away from it by learning the things that we're taught in the society we grow up in. And I'm not going to put any blame on anything or anybody here. It's just happened. So let's reconnect. So all I want you to do now is make yourself comfortable. And if you want to, it's probably a good idea to close your eyes with this one. So just go ahead, take nice, comfortable breaths and just allow your awareness to sink inside. That's right. Just allow that awareness to go inward, become more aware of things that normally go unnoticed. Notice that breathing. Notice the way you breathe. Maybe become aware of how the breath comes in. If you're breathing through your nose, how does that feel? How does it feel as it drops down into your lungs and breathing out? Perhaps you can notice how your hands feel. Maybe one hand feels heavier than the other. I don't know which one it would be, or how different each hand feels. And as you become more aware of all of these things that normally you perhaps would give no attention to, I'd like you to give your attention to that wonderful celestial body that circles our Mother Earth, the moon. And it doesn't matter how you see that beautiful moon, whether it's a crescent, whether it's waxing or waning, whether it's full, whether it's brilliantly new. You can just let yourself see the moon in whichever way suits you best. And just take a moment to allow the moon to feel that she has your attention right now. And maybe, and I don't know, maybe you'll feel her attention coming to you. She understands that you're reaching out to recreate a connection with that moon so that she can use all of her heart to help you with all of the things you'll need help with in your life. And as you allow this to happen, you can imagine a bridge forming, a bridge that's forming from you, reaching out to that beautiful moon. And as you notice the bridge forming, going from you, reaching out towards that moon, you'll also notice that the bridge is being sent to you by the moon. And just watch as those two bridges grow and notice when they meet. And notice the energy that flows through you when they two meet. Pay attention to that energy and where its center is, and how it feels, and how you feel. And if you can, just let that energy flow through your body, all the way through your body, into your head, your shoulders, your arms, down through your wrists and hands, your fingers, through your body, your torso, every energy center really stimulated by this now. Down through your legs, ankles, feet, toes, and you'll feel the tingle sometimes as this energy fills you, floods you with love, and you can feel it now, filling your heart, allowing that connection to be made there. And as you look again, you can notice that the bridge seems shorter and the moon so much closer, and only if you're ready, you may even want to take a step onto that bridge and approach the moon. But you don't have to now. It can happen anytime. But if you do, does the moon show herself to you? And if she does, notice how she appears. What form does she take? Is it a physical form that you can recognize? So just take a minute now, and I'll be quiet while you allow this connection with the moon to grow in strength and love and wisdom with the moon. Okay, and now, only when you are ready, only as quickly as you know that you can come back to now, and that connection with the moon will not disappear. When you know that to be a fact, when that connection is integrated into yourself, into your person at every level, at the emotional level, the intellectual level, the physical level, when you know that that's happened, and the connection will be with you, provided that you maintain that bridge, then you can allow yourself to come back to now and open your eyes feeling relaxed, energized, ready for the wonderful day ahead of you or the evening ahead. So just take your time and come back when you're ready. Well, how was that, everyone? Worked okay? That's great. Yeah, thumbs up. That's fabulous. That little exercise, I would practice it every day. It takes, what, minute, 2 minutes? When you've been through it, remember, you're going to get this recording. of this, so you'll be able to listen to it again if you need to. But very quickly, it's a very simple thing. All you're going to do is create that bridge. What I will suggest, though, is if the moon has appeared to you in some kind of form, whether it's a human or a humanistic form or whatever form, that can change. As your connection with the moon grows stronger and in more and more aspects that you feel the moon and allow the moon, that can change. The bridge can change. The form of the bridge can change. Allow that to happen. This is literally an unconscious response. The symbolism of how things look, when they change, is your unconscious mind, or subconscious mind, if you prefer to call it that, giving you the change that's happening. It's allowing you to see that some transformation is taking place. Some form of alchemy is going on. Lead is turning into gold. So does anybody have any questions now about that? Like I say, you'll have access to this recording from tomorrow afternoon, UK afternoon time onwards. I'll send everybody an email with a link to the connection. So do check your junk mail, will you? Because sometimes that's where things go, don't they? And so don't think that I've left you alone and I lied about it. I will be sending the email. We'll all get it. But if you need to look at this practice again, then obviously you'll have it there.
I
Julie,
think what you
kick
said
in.
there, Pete, the you know, that word change, and that's the key to it all. You know, we resist change so much. We're taught to resist change, and when we work with the moon, we actually learn to use change. And you know, we're designed to transform. So just like the moon changes, you get to change as well. You get to become new. You get to evolve. So let the moon help you transform into becoming more of who you are naturally designed to be.
If you want to be a surfer, you're going to ride that wave. And I mean, whether or not you like the idea of being a surfer, you've got to admit it's pretty exciting. I just say, you know, the idea of what we've just done with that connection, if you practice it, you will get more out of it. You will. There are, we should mention, you know, we're talking about the moon as though it's like a hidden secret. And for our Western societies, it is. It's been buried and hidden. Again, we're not going to go into the whys and wherefores of that. But there are societies where it's not hidden, aren't there? So, for example, the Hebrew calendar, the Jewish calendar, they work with the moon all the time. And bizarre as this seems, in the Semitic world and the Arabian world, the Muslim calendar is lunar. In fact, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan are in competition at the beginning of every damned lunar month. They send planes up and they're desperate to be the first one to spot the new moon. So that's where the new monthly calendar begins. And that's the truth. So, you know, they do. And we could go back personally to linking ourselves with the lunar calendar that will be unique to us, which is what we're going to show you how to create in our workshop, but also with having it anchored to the solar calendar without letting either of them overpower the other, so that there is this massive balance, this huge balance between these two great celestial bodies, both of which we need to actually survive as life on this planet. Again, I'll ask you, if anyone has any questions now, this would be a great time to unmute yourself and shout out. Steph, you just unmuted yourself.
Yes, I would like to find out more about the workshop.
Oh, then I'd better send you an email. Look, Steph, yeah, look, it's on January the 11th, and we are going to go through a lot more detail about the way that the waxing and waning moon affects the way that we eat. But it's more than just eating. It's going to be in lots of other things. There's there's a lot of detail about the different times of year and how the moon phases in those different times of year, which Julie touched on, will actually affect us. And if we've got our lunar calendar, we can plan in advance. I'm not saying 6 months in advance. I'm just saying, oh, you look at the calendar, oh, bloody hell, tomorrow's a full moon. I'd better think about not eating. Again, I'm simplifying what you might do. We'll talk about it lots more like that. But what we will do is more connection with the moon. We'll be doing more and more exercises like that. There'll be the practical aspect of creating a lunar calendar, something that you can then recreate every year. And we've got some fabulous ideas for that. Like every year in the solar calendar, we're coming up. January is on its way, isn't it? January is on its way, like January's been on its way for every year in my lifetime. Well, guess what? Your lunar calendar, the start of a year, can have a different monthly name.
Amazing.
And we're going to teach you how you will allow the moon to tell you what name that month should be, and each of the ones that follow. We're going to do things like that too in that. So the stuff that's going to be intensely practical on the level of this reality that we live in, but we're going to do some really magical stuff, almost shamanic. Well, when I say almost, it probably is very shamanic, because the connection is external rather than internal cosmology. So we'll be doing that, and there'll be other little things in. When I send out the email, there'll be bullet points of the sort of things that we'll be going through.
Absolutely. So just to say that you'll have the tools. You'll know exactly what to do. It's one thing talking about it, but we'll show you how to put it into.
Yeah, we will, and that's that. So that help.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Really fascinating. Thank you so much for tonight.
And it's as cheap as dirt, by the way. This workshop is cheap as dirt. Feel free to buy it as a gift for Christmas for one of your friends. I'm a terrible salesman, aren't I? It's not a job that I could ever go into, is it? Maybe I should ask the moon to tell me how to do that, but I haven't. But yeah, that workshop is going to be a starting point for physical well-being, emotional well-being, and mental well-being, and we're going to start that ball rolling, and there'll be lots more to come.
I've just put it in the chat if anyone wants it.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Sounds amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything that they want to ask or say? Gosh. That's it then. We're done, aren't we?
We are.
What I'll do is I will stop recording now. I should have stopped it earlier, but now this recording's now got that sales pitch in that was so dreadful.